Welcome to MRuns podcast, episode number 39. This is your host, Suman Silwal.
You can't make yourself do something that you physically cannot do.
I'd like to wish you and your family happy New Year 2017. And I also like to thank you for listening to MRuns podcast for in 2016. Looking forward to bring you great content for 2017 and beyond. I'd like to welcome Randy Lyle to MRuns podcast. Randy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you? Great.
Have you got any run done today?
I did a 5-mile run this morning.
Are you liking this up and down weathers of Alabama now, or you prefer it to be either hot or cold or consistent weather?
I prefer a little more consistency. I like the cold better than the hot, obviously, but I don't like the up and down so much.
Yeah, I like the warm weathers regardless.
Yeah.
So talk about running. Can you just tell us about your running journey? How did you start running, and we'll kind of go towards the main topic of this interview.
Sure. When I was younger in high school, I hated running. I hated everything about it. My wrestling coach made us run, and I swore I would never do it after I got out of high school. And I got to where I went, probably close to 20 years without doing really any running to speak of. And in 2008, I decided I needed to do something to get my doctor off my back about my weight and my blood pressure. So I found Danny Harrelson's Couch to 5K program through Run University, and I signed up, and it was a 7-week program to go literally from the couch to a 5K. And for 6 of those 7 weeks, I absolutely hated every minute of it. And then all of a sudden, it didn't seem so bad. Then I ran a couple of 5Ks, ran a couple of 10Ks, ran a couple of half marathons, and then ran a marathon, and along the way learned how to really enjoy it, and it wasn't punishment and painful as it used to be. So that's kind of how I got started.
So how many marathons have you done so far?
32.
You kind of travel around for the marathon as well, correct?
I do a little bit. I'll do 1 or 2 a year that require, I guess, what I would call air travel.
Are you trying to also cover like a 50 states or any goal like that do you have?
Not directly. I have friends who are, so I've done a few states, kind of just going with them, and at some point I probably will have enough states that it'll become a goal.
So as you are going from absolutely not running at all for a while, and then you start running, what were your struggles as you were trying to be a runner?
Number one, I was a little too heavy, so running was painful. Having not done it at all for forever. I wasn't conditioned for it at all. The muscles in my legs and I had a lot of shin splint issues. I got fitted in the wrong shoes to start with, and so I had, pain in my feet a little bit early on till I got fitted into the right shoe. But from probably more than anything, it was the mental change, I guess, of looking at running as either the punishment that high school coaches use it for, or the need to do it for conditioning for high school sports, to where it's more of a recreational. I'm not overly fast. I don't really care about pace so much when I do my runs, as much as I like to get out and run with people. Don't really like to run by myself a whole lot, but I will if I have to. So I think that just the mentality of it's more of for me a social time, and my running friends have become my best friends.
Definitely, you have a big group of running friends that you run day in and day out. So it always helps to have a group of friends to run with. Correct?
That's right.
So part of your running journey, you also traveled to Boston for that. And what are the other things have you done that's major highlights of your running so far?
Well, I think for me, I was in Boston in 2013 and did not get to finish the race. So a big highlight for me was being able to go back the next year and having a chance to finish, because that's still the only race that I started that I did not cross the finish line. I haven't always looked good crossing the finish line, but I've always, been able to at least finish a race. So that one was a hard one for me, mentally, emotionally, to not get to finish. So going back the next year was a huge part of just my running highlights for me. I've had the opportunity to run the Marine Corps Marathon a couple of times, and that's always a very emotional kind of a race, just because of all the activities going on around it. I've been fortunate enough. I run New York once. I run Chicago once. I went this past year and I ran LA. And I think the highlight of that was actually watching the Olympic trials the day before and just seeing some what I would consider the truly great American runners competing at the highest level. But that kind of stuff has always been really tremendous for me. And just get to see other runners who make it look easy and are really amazing are what really make me enjoy it.
Definitely. And you also have dabbled around doing some ultra races. I have seen you around town doing some ultras. Do you still try to do that, or have you just staying only with the marathon or less distance?
I do those on occasion. I'm most of my running group don't go that far. So when I go do something like that, I'm usually kind of on my own unless I can talk someone into trying it. I've done a handful of ultras, probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 50Ks. I've done one 10-hour run up in Kentucky that I think I was able to cover about 38 and a half miles. I did the Barely Ultra the first year, and I really wanted to do it this year. I twisted my ankle about a week before and just did not want to risk a swollen ankle on the trail, so I had to pass on it this year. But I enjoy that because it's a different mentality and a different type of event to go after. And it's not so much, for me anyway, there's no speed. I'm not a really, really comfortable trail runner, so it's a lot more work for me to do a trail run, but I like being out in the woods, and it's a lot of fun.
Definitely. And you enjoy running, so it doesn't matter which terrain that you're on.
Right.
So
right. Absolutely.
Randy, let's talk about the main topic of this interview, that you just recently completed 5 years of running every day. I mean, personally, I cannot do that. I have tried. I have gone like a week or 10 days, and then my body said stop, and then I have to stop. But you have been doing this 5 years. Can you tell us about that journey? How did you start? And then just kind of guide us and talk us through this whole journey of running 5 years every day.
Sure. I'm actually an accidental streaker. Back in, I guess, 2011, going into 2011, I saw a post on Facebook from Runner's World basically issuing a challenge to run every day in the month of January. And so I decided just on my own that I would try it. And I made it to about 20 or 21 days, and I got sick or something and ended up not making the whole month. Didn't think much more about it because at the time I took at least 1 to 2 days a week off from running. And I also was more focused on trying to run faster. So I would do 1 or 2 days of more tempo style work at the time. And so the year went on, and at the end of 2011, somebody in my running group mentioned that there was the Runner's World Challenge again to run every day in the month of January. And they decided that as a group we should try it. So we started, and most everybody, or at least everybody who was trying to do it, I think most everybody finished the month of January having run every day. And I had not intentionally, but I had actually started on Christmas Eve, and I had run every day leading into January. So by the time I got to the end of the month, I was at somewhere around 39 days. And I'm a numbers nerd, so 39 is not a nice round number. And I decided I could get to 50 days in less than 2 weeks. I got to 50 days, and then I decided I would try to get to 100 days. And in the midst of that, I had decided also that I was running a half marathon in Vancouver in August, and I had a time goal for that race. And I felt certain that I couldn't hit that goal without a rest day as I led up to it. And it just so happens all my friends started encouraging me to do the whole year. And I ended up getting to that Vancouver race, and I didn't take a rest day. And I still ran my goal time. I got to the end of the year, and I looked back at the year and realized I'd run every day that year. I had set like 9 PRs. I had run 4 of those PRs were marathon PRs, but I had changed my running sort of philosophy a little bit to be more about running every day versus running tempo stuff. But I sort of found that even by accident, I got faster. And I think I realized, for me at least, that volume tended to really play into my speed and making it where I could push myself harder. And so then from there, I was sort of at a point where I wasn't sure how to stop the streak. So here I am 4 years after that, and I still don't know how to stop the streak. Not that I want to, but I have this obsessive compulsive personality in some areas, and apparently this is one of those areas.
So Randy, running every day as a streaker in the last 5 years, was there any moment that you said, I don't want to do this anymore, or you just say, okay, this is my goal, I'll do it regardless? Well,
it's interesting because the first year, I remember I decided that Easter Sunday would be a good day to end it. don't really necessarily know why I picked that day. I think I was sort of tired of running every day, and I just thought that would be a good way to sort of recognize the importance of Easter, and I would just sort of make that a symbolic end to the streak. And so I did not get up that morning and run. I went to church that day. I did all the stuff you would normally do on Easter through the afternoon. And that night, about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, as we, my wife and I went to bed, and I'm laying there for a second. And the more I laid there, the more I was like, well, you really only have to run 1 mile if you want to keep this going. So about 10:30, I start getting up out of the bed, and my wife's like, what are you doing? And she has a treadmill in our basement. And I just looked at her and I said, I have to go run a mile. I can't. I'm not going to be able to sleep if I don't. So that's sort of when I kind of realized that mentally for me, it was probably something I was going to continue to push. And I don't know, it's just, I guess the obsessive side of me just was like, if I can run a mile, that's all it really takes. And I had read about a guy on a flight back from Houston in the Southwest Airlines magazine that was approaching 40 years of a streak. And the article talked about the United States Running Streak Association. And so I had read about that a little bit later and realized that there's actually this is all an organized thing. I just thought I was doing something, just because. And so now that I know there's an organization, I sort of feel like there's a group of people out there that are as crazy as I am. So let's try to stay with them. And I really haven't had another day. I've had some injuries. I've had some sickness that has made it hard to get out and go. But so far, I've been able to at least force myself out. And if I have to hobble through a mile, I hobble through a mile. If I have to finish a mile and cough for 30 or 40 minutes, then that's just kind of what I do. And my wife gets on to me about it, but it just kind of is the way I am.
Definitely. It's becoming a part of your life, I guess. Now.
Right.
What is the least mile do you have to run to keep up your streak?
Well, when I started, I decided that it was, I wanted to run at least a mile a day. When I read the article about the United States Running Streak Association and the fact that they actually have guidelines and rules, and I read their guidelines and rules, and theirs says something along the lines of you have to run a continuous mile unaided. Never really been certain about exactly what that means, other than you can't have someone, I guess, help you, help you finish a run or something like that. But so I sort of accidentally was following the rules that they had set out, and so it's 1 mile is the minimum according to what their requirements are.
So are part of that association now? Is that what you said, correct?
Well, I have not actually officially joined it. I sort of, I do follow it on Facebook, and I know people who are members, and people encourage me to, and it's just a matter of, now that I've hit 5 years, I probably will make it a point to go join the association. But it just sort of seemed like I don't know, I guess I didn't realize how many people were doing it until I got on their website and looked around a little bit and realized it's a pretty big deal for a lot of people. And there are some people out there who have really kept up streaks for 30, 40, 45 years, which astounds me.
Tell us about running comes with injuries, correct? So running every day, even a mile, in any condition may not be safe to run. Have you ever faced such a challenge where you were injured and you continue running, or you haven't had that issue?
I haven't had a serious enough injury to prevent me from running a mile. It's been a huge help for me to have a treadmill at home, because on the days where I've twisted ankles countless times, sometimes it's only painful for a few days, sometimes it's painful for a few weeks. I twisted my ankle earlier this month, and I've, even though running it doesn't hurt, there's still some tenderness there, so I sort of baby it a little bit to make sure I don't make it worse. But I'm real careful about the type of injury. I had a foot problem earlier in the year, and I got concerned that maybe there was a broken bone in the foot, so I did go to the doctor and get it checked out. Turns out it was plantar fasciitis, and he basically told me sort of some things to do to take care of it, but at the same time he told me that basically how much pain I could tolerate would dictate how much running I could do.
Definitely. Yeah, plantar is different. I have realized plantar is different for different people. Whenever I had plantar a few years ago, I continued to run. I actually took on more on trail running than running a road, but I think it helps you. But I think it's different for different people.
Right.
Do you think it's safe to run? I mean, for you, probably the answer is yes, because you've been running all these years. But people like me who wants to do this as a challenge, do you think it's safe to do that?
I think it's one of those things that I had to adapt my running to running every day. If I had continued to try to do 1 or 2 days of really hard, more intense pace and hills and stuff like that, I'm not sure I could have maintained that level and been able to run every day without risking some injury. I mean, I think there are dangers to it. I think you have to know what your recovery time is like. You have to know how to take an easy day to recover. So when if I have a particularly hard run or series of runs where I can feel my legs are, really suffering, I don't have a problem cutting back my mileage, cutting back my pace. I just sort of adjust for it and just make sure I take care of myself. I had a hamstring start bothering me last December, and I spent a month where I walked up every hill. I reduced the amount of distance I was running, even though I was trying to prepare for the LA Marathon, and I really had a time goal at the time I started my preparation. I just realized after a month of having to do that, my time goal was no longer relevant, and now it was just a matter of going out, enjoying the race, and finishing. So it does, depends on the mindset of the person, because a lot of people I know, I don't think they can make that switch.
So as you run every day, how many average mile do you log in a year, last 5 years? What is your average? What is the highest and lowest miles have you logged in a year? You think that running every day, people will log a lot more miles. I guess that's not the goal as well, correct?
It's not, but I do set a mileage goal every year. I've only hit that goal once. My biggest mileage year was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I set a goal of 2,500 miles, and I got a little over 2,500. This year has been really challenging. I've had multiple little issues to deal with all year that's limited my mileage to a degree, but I came into the year with a goal of 2,500 miles. I'm probably going to finish the year with 2,200 or so miles. I guess for me, an average year is somewhere around 2,200 miles roughly. If I can not have any issues to deal with, and the weather doesn't cause too many issues, I can get close to 2,500 miles in a year. I've had a couple of years where it's closer to 2,000 miles. I don't think I've been under 2,000 miles even before I started the streak, outside of maybe the first year I was running.
Definitely. And one thing I have realized is more miles sometimes can bring a lot of injuries. I guess 2,200 is still a lot of miles, but I think your body may be conditioned to handle that much mile every year.
Yeah, again, I really do pay a lot of attention to how I feel. And most of my runs these days are based on how I feel. So I can go out one day with a group, and I can be near the front of the pack with them running, no issues whatsoever. I can go a couple days later with the same group of people, and I may be near the back, or I may even be lagging behind a little bit. And it's just, I'm not going to push myself when my body's telling me not to push myself. If I can push and they're pushing, then I'm happy to do it. But I really, really run mostly by feel more than anything else.
I think a lot of people may be curious how often you change your shoes and what type of shoes you wear. I think it may help to dictate how you run as well, I guess.
Yeah, I used to wear the Brooks Ghost, and I think it's a great shoe. I love the shoe. Probably 3, maybe 4 years ago now, I was introduced to the Skechers Ultra shoe. And it's a very high cushion, at least at that time, it was a very high cushion shoe. I had not given Skechers, paid a lot of attention to them, because the only shoe I'd ever tried was the shoe that Mel Keflezighi wears, and that's not a shoe that works for me. But I was introduced to that Ultra. I liked it. I bought it. I wore it for several times, for several sessions, and then I switched over at one point to a different, to the Skechers Go Run, or I think it's the Go Run Ride. I've worn several iterations of it. I'm actually back. There's they changed the Ultra, and I have the trail version of the Ultra and the road version of the Ultra, and that's what I wear. It's still a lightweight shoe with a lot of good cushioning. It's a neutral shoe. I don't do well with stability or support shoes, but I have become a Skechers person, especially when it comes to the shoes through and through. That's all I have. I still think the other shoes, the Brooks, the Mizunos, the Sauconys, all those I think are good shoes for if they're the right shoe for the runner. But I have sort of kind of become a Skechers person. I think has found that's been the best shoe for me. I can usually get 400 to 500 miles on a pair of shoes, and so if you just do the math on, say, 2,500 miles a year or 2,000 miles a year, I probably go through about 5 pairs or so of shoes a year. But I usually am rotating 2 or 3 pair at a time.
Definitely. I had never tried the Skechers shoes. I may have to look into it. I wear all kind of shoes, from Hoka, Montreal to Solomon to anything else.
Right.
Like you, I like to rotate a lot, and my trail shoes is different from the road shoes, and my racing shoes is different from the running shoes.
Right.
Everyday running shoes, things like that. And I do rotate. Yeah, that's always a good idea. Tell us about your nutrition. What kind of nutrition do you follow, or do you follow any nutrition? Is that part of your running everyday goal, or it's not?
Well, actually, I was probably, from a nutritional standpoint, probably the absolute worst eater you could find from somebody who ran on a regular basis. I've never been good with my diet, and probably about 6 or 8 months ago, my wife, who is actually a very nutritious, conscious person, introduced me to a place where I actually get most of my meals now. Because they're more balanced, they're more proportional calorie-wise, and nutritionally speaking, they're much better than what I was doing. So I probably have been better with my nutrition for the last 6 months, but I've never really been very good at it in terms of my running and how I run. I know my coach, Danny Harrelson, has often said that you can't outrun a bad diet. And I jokingly tell him I've tried for 7 years to disprove that, and I've not been very successful.
Talk about training and running. Do you also follow any sort of training plans, or kind of now you just kind of run every day? What do you need, or you have some sort of set training plans?
I don't necessarily follow a set plan as much as I sort of know if I have a marathon coming up, I sort of know how many miles I need to be doing based on how far the race is out. I'm usually training with people who are also preparing for the same race. So most of my long runs are just sort of accommodating whatever they need. If I want more mileage than they have, I may go an hour early and run 4 or 5 miles before they get there, and then run what they're running. Weekdays, I run whatever the people around me want or need to run in most cases, and then if I need more, I'll just adjust my timing to get more miles.
Randy, can you kind of guide us through what's the mindset of a streaker like you, or people or read about? What is the mindset here for people like us who kind of don't understand why you have to run every day, even day in and day out? We don't run because we want to rest. There's always a rest time and downtime we like to have. But for you or people who's on that path and in that journey, that you do it regardless, kind of guide us through your mindset.
Well, I think for me, no matter what I've ever done in my life, I've always done it at full speed, 100% effort. I put everything into it. I don't really know how to go half speed. My friends growing up used to joke that everything that I did was a competition. So if I was doing the same thing someone else was doing, I had to try to outdo them at that. So for me, it's the thing I like about running when I got into it as an older adult is that now my competition every time is against myself. So if I go run a 5K, I'm running against my previous 5Ks. I really don't care so much what the other people around me are doing. I'm always there to compete against myself in former races. So I sort of feel like that in order to get better, I've got to get out there and run. So I also find that I work a good number of hours every week just because of what I have going on at work. And I'm in a much better state of mind at work if I got my run in that morning. It's like that's my time to sort of relax and decompress. In some cases, to think about the day ahead and sort of planning out what I need to do that day. And so by the time I get to work, I'm much more productive if I had a chance to run that morning. And it's just a habit. I think once it becomes a habit, it's just what you do. I don't think about it in the morning anymore. I get ready to go to bed. I pack up my work clothes for the next day, get my running clothes for the next day out. So in the morning when I wake up, I get up, grab my stuff, and I just go. And it's not a question of whether or not I'm going to go run.
So as you look forward for 2017 and beyond, do you see yourself continue on next 5 years, 10 years? I know it's hard to answer these questions, but kind of on your mindset itself, do you think you're built to continue?
I think so. You can never say that something won't happen that stops it, but unless something pretty extraordinary were to come along that just prevents me from being able to run, I don't have any intention to stop. I see people out there. There's a guy in town named Prince Watley that he had an 11-year streak that he ended because he had to for health I guess not health. I guess he got injured. And that can always happen because he was the kind of guy I could have seen him going 20 or 30 years. So I guess there's no guarantee that I can make it tomorrow. But unless something unforeseen happens, I don't have any intentions to stop. I'm not sure mentally my mind would let me not do it.
Yeah, Randy, Prince Watley was our MRuns podcast guest, episode number 10. I will link that up, and people can listen to his journey as well and how he had to stop. Talking about a little bit more, you talked many times about Run University, and Coach Danny Harrell, he's a huge part of a Birmingham running community. And looks like he's a huge part of your running journey as well. Can you talk a little bit, kind of touch base? I will bring him in a future podcast, but just want you to kind of touch base and talk about it a little bit.
Sure. I wouldn't be running today if it weren't for Danny. He has a way of taking somebody like me who absolutely hated it and really wasn't sure it was something I wanted to do, and he has a way of making it fun, but at the same time challenging. I think if you just look at the number of runners in the Birmingham community who have started through his program, I think you would find that I would say the vast majority of people probably at some point in time were either starting with him or training with him. I think the thing that I think most people like, and at least I know I do, is that he really is primarily concerned with your success and with helping you reach your goals. He's not going to do it for you, obviously, but he's going to make sure that, he's going to give you the plan that will let you reach whatever goal you want. If you want to just be a faster 5K runner, he's more than happy to help you get there. If you want to become a marathoner, he can get you there. I think he's done, I don't know how many, 60 or so marathons, and his wife Mickey, who works with him, has done, I say 80 marathons in almost all 50 states. Between the two of them, you can't find two better people. And they're probably the biggest reason that I'm interested in it and still going. And I still run with that group every Saturday if I can. And it's just a huge part of my running journey has been with Danny and Mickey right behind me.
Great. There's always somebody supporting, and like that, right. It always helps. Before we conclude our interview, Randy, I would just want you to give a word of advice to people who are listening to us or are thinking about going running every day, next 10 days, 15 days, 1 year, 10 years. Kind of give a word of advice and do's and don'ts and for being a streaker in the future.
Well, I think from my perspective, it needs to be that you're doing it because you want to do it, or whether it's just you want to challenge yourself to go run for 30 days in a row, or you want to run, 2 weeks in a row, or whatever. I think if it's not something you want to do, I think you're going to have a hard time getting up every morning, because it does take a little while for that to become a habit, so that you're not laying in the bed going, oh crap, I have to get up again. But I think, too, the biggest thing for me, and I mentioned it earlier, is I think you really have to pay attention to how your body feels. If you push yourself to the point where you're already hurting or maybe even slightly injured and you continue to push yourself hard, you're just going to put yourself on the shelf for a while. So that's, to me, the two biggest things is do it for the right reason, but then also be smart about how you go about it. And that, if you can't make yourself do something that you physically cannot do. So that's the biggest key, I think, to me, is to be smart about it and listen to what your body's telling you.
Definitely. Thanks for your time. Hoping forward to listening to your journey in the coming days. And good luck running every day in 2017 and beyond.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to another episode of MRuns Podcast. Visit mruns.com for latest updates as well as links to our social media channel.